From the Opubco studios, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson. We'll be joined by Barry Trammell in just a second. We are brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. You can go online right now and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Barry Trammell joining us via the telephone lines. He's in Kansas City where the Big 12 basketball tournament is. Barry, happy you're here.
Thanks, Jackie O.
No problem. Let's get right to it with Inbox this week. Let's start with Dave. Speaking of conference tournaments, Dave asks, why do we still have conference tournaments? Just to get a Cinderella into the NCAA tournament and add drama to the bubble storyline? Because otherwise, they seem meaningless. Barry, what about that?
Well, I would argue otherwise. I would argue that college basketball is afflicted with too many meaningless games, and they don't happen in March, they happen in November and December. If you're wanting to change the college basketball schedule, get rid of all the bad games between the directional states and small schools from the American East Conference. So I like the Big 12 tournament, I like the ACC tournament, I like these major tournaments because they put really good teams against each other on a neutral site. You get to find out who's playing well, who's good, who's not. I like the conference tournament.
Well, you know, I think Dave brings up a point that oftentimes resonates most in the smaller conferences. You know, when you've got a conference that has one automatic bid, they've got a team that's been great all year, clearly the conference champion, then they go to the conference tournament, maybe have one game where they stumble and they don't make the NCAA tournament. I think in bigger conferences, it tends to all work out. But in smaller conferences, maybe there is some validity to why have a conference tournament if you've got a full schedule, a full slate, where those games do matter, Barry. Those games are important to those guys because they know that if you lose, you're not gonna represent your conference. So maybe that's what you do in the smaller conferences? Is that the answer?
Well, I mean, here's what I like about the small conference tournaments. It gives them a stage and a spotlight. I've watched 3 or 4 games this week. Wofford, West Carolina.
You don't normally watch Wofford, West Carolina?
I do not normally watch Wofford, Western Carolina. So, I mean, America will watch some of these because they know it's do or die. And if you're talking about a January game in Asheville, people aren't going to watch.
Yeah, good point, good point. All right, let's go on to the inbox from Bill. Bill's got a question. He says, is Sam Grant considered to be in the same ilk as Gabe Ikard and Lane Johnson, i.e. converting from tight end to the line? It's football questions in March. Barry, what about this?
Well, it's a fascinating question. I hadn't considered it, but that's 2 really good players who came to OU as tight ends and became dominant linemen. One was a top 5 NFL draft pick. The other one was an All-American at center. Now, that's no reason to think Sam Grant's going to do the same. That's hard to do. It's hard to find first-round draft picks. It's hard to find All-Americans. But I think it's good for Sam Grant in that it'll give him a chance to play. Tight ends getting crowded now with Blake Bell, and they don't like to use them all the time anyway. So I think it's probably better for Sam Grant than maybe for the Sooners.
Well, and, you know, I've talked to Gabe Ikard about that switch that he made. And, you know, he said it was strictly a matter of doing scout team, playing that scout team position, maybe occasionally coming in and playing line and blocking guys, having some success, and realizing, you know what, this may be the faster path to get on the field. So if this is a case where Grant can do it and he wants to get on the field, maybe that motivates him. And, hey, Oklahoma has had great success doing this, so there's that precedent out there. Not a bad idea. All right, back to the inbox. This one comes from John. John says, OSU's losses at the center position, Wickline's fingerprints are all over this. Barry, what about this? We're finding out some folks have left the Oklahoma State program, including expected starting center Jake Jenkins.
Well, it's a great question. How did the departure of Joe Wickline affect the decision of Jake Jenkins? And I know this. Offensive linemen and offensive line coaches have a unique bond. You don't see it as much at other positions, but for whatever reason, on virtually every level of football, there is a tight bond between the position coach and the players. And I don't know if John's asking if if it's subversive, or did Wickline poison the well? Did these guys just say, you know what, I don't want to keep playing for a new coach? I don't know the answer to that. I do know this. No way it helped OSU to lose Joe Wickline when it comes to Jake Jenkins, because those guys had the great relationship. It's possible that Jake Jenkins said, you know what, I'm not sure what to do. The decision of Joe Wickline to go to Texas pushed him over the edge and said, you know what, rather than break in a new coach, I think I'll just get on with my life.
Yeah, and I think anything at this point, none of us have had a chance to talk to Jake Jenkins yet, but I think we'd all be speculating if we knew exactly what had happened. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to assume that there's at least a correlation to the relationship between Joe Wickline and Jenkins, and that's, I've talked to offensive linemen before. They're just a different breed, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're sort of eclectic / intelligent / almost cliquish, clubbish the way they act with each other, and it works. Great offensive lines tend to be all of those things, but I think that creates sort of an insular group within the football team. And when you lose a coach who's been there forever, who's as charismatic as Joe Wickline is, I could see why a guy might say, you know what, I've got my degree, I'm done with football, I'm going to move on. So I wouldn't be surprised if the two are linked, but I'm not exactly sure how at this point. Maybe time will tell. All right, back to the inbox one more time for a question from Josh. Josh says, Phil Jackson to the Knicks. What are the chances Oklahoma City could ever get the Zen Master? Barry, lots of moving and shaking in New York. Any chance that would ever happen here?
The answer is I doubt Phil Jackson would ever lower himself to coach in an outpost like Oklahoma City, but that would happen far sooner than Oklahoma City and this Thunder organization offering him a job. Zen Master is the farthest thing from the Thunder ideal I can possibly think of. No way does Sam Presti want a coach who thinks outside the Thunder structure, and no way does he want somebody who sort of does things on his own. Phil Jackson answers to nobody, and in the Thunder in the Thunder structure, they're all in that together. They have a plan, they have a system, they have a formula, and you're not really supposed to deviate from that, perhaps unless you're a ball player. And no way. I would, if I made a list of the top 1,000 coaching candidates for the Oklahoma City Thunder, Phil Jackson would not make the list.
So if we had the very extended coaching bracket, the next time we have a coaching search, no Phil Jackson. Got it. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is ever going to happen either. I think there are probably a lot of reasons for it. But to me, if you're looking at Phil Jackson, now he's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but he's willing to go to the Knicks. We all know what a train wreck the Knicks are. We know what a mess they are in the front office, the ownership, right now the team, the coaching. I mean, it's all a mess, and he's willing to go there. So to me, yeah, he's a great coach, but I just think it says something that he's willing to put himself in the middle of that mess. And yeah, I don't think he'll ever be in the middle of Oklahoma City, whether it's a mess, whether it's fine. No way you're ever going to see Phil Jackson patrolling the Thunder sidelines. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.